The topic of our conversation today is guilt and how we take it on. Isn't it amazing? And the one thing, and jokes aside, when you were talking about the shit day, Michelle, and the part you brought up about going to Steph's class and how we shame ourselves with like stuff that we plan to do and then don't do it, and bury ourselves in the shame and the guilt of it. So I just recognize that a lot of people that I'm dealing with are putting themselves under unnecessary stress, and especially during this whole period, because of what they're not doing versus what they think they should be doing. And for those of you who had a chance to tune in to Jack Kavanagh last week, he had a brilliant little saying, kick the shit out of it. Because I should be eating more healthily, and I should be doing more exercise, and I should be reading more, and I should be listening to more. And there's so much of what I should be doing that I can guilt myself up on, that I can actually take an overdose and an overload of guilt. So the challenge is to not take on the shoulding part and to leave it go, and to look at things in the context of what I could do and what feeds my soul and what is feeding my soul. And it's okay to have crap days, and it's okay to have good days, and it's okay to feel that we're in a yacht, and it's okay to be in a leaky kayak. They're all okay. It's when we feel that we should be in a yacht all the time, that's when we bring on the guilt trip. And people, and I don't know if you find this, but we'll talk about this, it's how people can put guilt on you then as well, and put the guilts on you. You know, so like, would you not be doing that? And would you not be thinking of that? Or would you not be covering that off? So Brené Brown is the lady who is the queen of shame and guilt research. And she has a brilliant podcast on over-functioning and under-functioning. And how as over-functioners, and lots of us that I meet in our trip around these businesses are over-functioners. And what we mean by over-functioners, they can generally be classified as people who are the eldest in the family, or who take on the role of the eldest in the family. They're the type of people who, and I'm like the eldest, I'm an over-functioner in rehab. I was once an over-functioner. Why the podcast resonated so strongly with me when I listened to it, and it's only 35 minutes long. She was describing herself in a situation where her mom was taken to hospital, and how she kind of jumped into action mode, and this is what we do and this is what we not do. And one of her sisters just called her on it and said, like, you know, you're all right, like, people have got stuff, we can do things. And she's saying, like, she just collapsed in a heap. Because what most of us over-functioners do, and I recognize some of us on the screen, is we take on the responsibility for people, and we feel guilty when we're not doing it. We feel guilty when we're not overdosing ourselves in the responsibility for. And there are two things that I came across last week when I was dealing with people in our businesses. And it's the difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. So we can take on responsibility for things. And I see us doing this, especially in leadership roles. We take on responsibility for our people, and we do things on their behalf. So I was on a call just up to lunch hour, totally different business to the business we're involved in, an ad agency. And this lady is head of a digital part of the ad agency. So it's called connected services. So it's how, when a client comes into the business, you know, they make big TV ads, movie ads, whatever, but it's how you integrate that then across all the platforms, and how you create a social presence for big brands through all the different platforms. And she was talking about, she's at the top of the tree, but just above her on the tree, she got a call from someone about parts of her business. And she said, like, that are 3 layers beneath me in the business. And this person above me was on it, and was on it about the hours in that business. And she said, like, holy moly, it was like, if I had to be doing that in my business, I just wouldn't be getting it done. like if I took responsibility for knowing what the answer to that was. She said, like, in my case, she said in her case, like, Ralph does that for me. Like, and that's Ralph's job. She said, like, there's someone above me was actually having an opinion of what Ralph should do. And she said, like, it just taught me what we had been speaking about in the last couple of weeks, herself and myself. She said, like, because I could see what Ralph would do in that situation because I just did it. And I'm like at director level. When this person came and asked me, I just stood back and said, knock yourself out. If you want to be involved, I just don't have an opinion. And I'm highly motivated and I'm highly charged. But what the person who was taking responsibility for was doing was they were stepping right into the middle of the space. So what we do then is we step out and say, well, that's what you want to do. So I know there's no one on the call here now would do that and take responsibility to the extent that they'd be all over something. And just saying, that's a different day, different business, ad agency, like to be anything to do with our businesses because wouldn't be a bit like that. But that's what I've done in the past. I've taken responsibility for stuff. But the classic I had last week was with two people where one person then was stepping into that space because they were feeling responsibility too. So if I could draw the comparison here to be like one of our nurse managers, say on the call, doing something with a client and doing it because they felt that I had a responsibility not for doing that, but I felt responsible to my colleague who I just wanted to get stuff done for. And he said, like, where am I going with this? So it's very easy to step in and take responsibility for everything and say, I'll do everything. And then sometimes you don't have a role and you feel like, oh, I'm responsible to the person who's doing it. So I want to be stepping in to help them, and I'm feeling guilty for them. So the person I was dealing with last week in our business here was like under massive guilt, like they couldn't take a day off. Wrote like, I see Kieran on the screen here now. So say Kieran kind of doesn't even fully report into me, but he's in my section, and I felt like I can't be taking the day off because I don't say Kieran taking the day off, even though I'm not going to impact on whether Kieran is working or not working. But I just feel I'm responsible to him, and it wouldn't look right if I was taking time when I know he's breaking his buns working hard. And that's another form of the guilt. And like I'm feeling guilty for not being as busy as, or for not being as overloaded as I see someone else in there is. Some of us have shared on the calls over the last couple of weeks, like feeling guilty because at some days I'm in a bit of a bubble. So like today, I'm in a bubble. It's scorching up here. I wish I was sitting out in it, and we'll have to make that happen more often. But like, no, it's all right. No, not 100 yards down the road from me, real life goes on, and all the cars are passing up and down, and there's fellas working on the roads, and people are back to work, but I'm in my little bubble up here. And you can feel guilty for things like that. And people in the call have shared that with us, like, I'm feeling guilty for feeling so good at the moment, like. But the challenge is that's okay. Because there'll be enough days where you'll be hitting me on the other side of it. So to live in the now with that and live in the present of it. The difference between projecting out, we were talking about this yesterday, how the pressure valve was kind of taken off by people starting to go back to work yesterday, and a bit of normality starting to happen. And then for most people realizing there is no normality, like, Jesus, like this doesn't finish for a while. And I was on another call this morning and someone said, like, no, like, let's get real with this. They're a pharma company, and the guy says, like, there isn't going to be a vaccine for this thing. Like, so this is going to go on for a while. So like, let's get real. This is like this year and next year kind of thing. And the difference was those other people on the calls like, yeah, get real. Like, but I mean, we'll be back into work on some level. We'll be working from home for like 2 or 3 days a week, maybe. Yeah, it's going to be different. And to Michelle's point yesterday, people have stopped calling it the new norm. It is this is it, like, and this is what this gang was saying this morning. This is it now. It's kind of, it's like, how do we now start to to apply ourselves to it. And there's a degree of permanency coming in around it. And some people start to feel guilty that, you know, maybe I have it a bit easier, or I haven't felt the effect of this yet. When is it really going to hit me? All we can do is live day by day with it, and take it as it comes, and say it's good. Like, it's good to have the emotion of feeling okay now. We don't need to put anything in on it that takes from that feeling, because it's so easy to bring in the feeling of guilt on so many levels. So the debunking of guilt is that it's just a negative emotion that we just do not need to carry. And just be conscious of how we put the guilt on people. We do it with our kids. Like, I thought you'd be better than that. I thought you'd be good. And what we're doing is we're teaching them how to react to shame, which is another word for guilt. So just be conscious of how we're overlaying that in lives, because the reason we're carrying guilt right now is because we've done it. I've done it for decades, because that's what I was brought up to. I thought you'd be better than that, and I'd have held you to a higher standard than that, you know, or I thought you'd have had more cop on, you know. It's like only the look a mother could give you. It cuts you down to the bare bones just by a look, and it's saying everything that says I'm now full of guilt and shame that I'm not living up to something. And we then bring that forward. We bring that into work. We bring that with us. So I'm saying to you now, on these calls, like, we have our little gang going here. We can cut that out. Like, we're the shameless gang. No guilt here. Like, leave it behind. So shit Tuesdays, no guilt Wednesdays. That's what I'm saying.